Good evening, everyone. I'll give a brief introduction on the BSKB Association. It is popularly known as Gokul. It is a 96-year-old charitable trust in Mumbai, and our activities include a community center at Sion and a home for senior citizens at Nerul, Navi Mumbai. With over 5,000 members, we have been actively interacting for religious, cultural, and social causes. The BSKB YouthWing is conducting Sunday interactive sessions along with the Talent Hunt series. The redevelopment project of the community center at Sion is on its verge of its completion. Let's catch a glimpse of the new building and the new temple.
ನವೀಕರಣಗೊಂಡ ಗೋಕುಲ ಕಟ್ಟಡದ ವೈಶಿಷ್ಟ್ಯಗಳು 7 ಅಂತಸ್ತುಗಳುಳ್ಳ ಗೋಕುಲ ಬೃಹತ್ ಸೌಧದಲ್ಲಿ 2 ತಳಮಜಲುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಮಾರು 70 ಕಾರುಗಳ ನಿಲುಗಡೆಗಾಗಿ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಮಾಡಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳಿಗಾಗಿ 225 ಆಸನಗಳುಳ್ಳ ಒಂದು ಸುಸಜ್ಜಿತ ಹವಾನಿಯಂತ್ರಿತ ಸಭಾಗೃಹ, 2 ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಭಾಂಗಣಗಳು, ಭೋಜನ ಗೃಹ, ಆಧುನಿಕ ಸೌಕರ್ಯಗಳುಳ್ಳ 3 ಪಾಕಶಾಲೆ, ಸುಸಜ್ಜಿತ ವಾಚನಾಲಯ, 50 ಸದಸ್ಯರು ಆಸೀನರಾಗಬಹುದಾದಂತಹ ಸಮಾಲೋಚನಾ ಕೊಠಡಿ, ಆಡಳಿತ ಕಚೇರಿ, 12 ಅತಿಥಿ ಕೊಠಡಿಗಳು, ಮನರಂಜನೆಗಾಗಿ ಒಳಾಂಗಣ ಕ್ರೀಡೆ ಇತ್ಯಾದಿ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳಿಗಾಗಿ ಕೊಠಡಿ, ವಿಶಾಲವಾದ ಟೆರೆಸ್, 3 ಮೆಟ್ಟಲ ದ್ವಾರಗಳು, 4 ಲಿಫ್ಟ್ಗಳು ಮುಂತಾದ ಸೌಲಭ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿರುವ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಸುಂದರವಾದ ಕಟ್ಟಡ ಇದಾಗಿದೆ. ದಕ್ಷಿಣ ಕನ್ನಡ ಶೈಲಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ರೂಪುಗೊಂಡ ಶ್ರೀ ಗೋಪಾಲಕೃಷ್ಣ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದ ವೈಶಿಷ್ಟ್ಯಗಳು: ಕುಸುರಿ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳಿಂದ ರಚಿಸಲ್ಪಟ್ಟ ಬೂದು ಬಣ್ಣದ ಶಿಲಾಮಯ ಗರ್ಭಗುಡಿ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಪ್ಪು ಕಲ್ಲಿನ 44 ಕೇಶವಾದಿ, ವಿಷ್ಣುವಾದಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಸಂಕರ್ಷಣಾದಿ ಮೂರ್ತಿಗಳು, ಸುಮಾರು 36 ಅಡಿ ಎತ್ತರದ ಬೃಹತ್ ಗೋಪುರ, 14 ಅಡಿ ಎತ್ತರದ ಮರದ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಯುಳ್ಳ ಮಹಾದ್ವಾರ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೃಷ್ಣಾವತಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ 28 ವಿವಿಧ ಪ್ರಕರಣಗಳ ಮರದ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು, 6 ಅಡಿ ಎತ್ತರದ ಕಲ್ಲಿನ ಜಯ ವಿಜಯ ದ್ವಾರಪಾಲಕ ಮೂರ್ತಿಗಳು, ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ 10 ಅಡಿ ಉದ್ದ 3 ಅಡಿ ಅಗಲದ ಅನಂತಶಯನ ದೇವರ ಮರದ ಕೆತ್ತನೆ, ಮಹಾದ್ವಾರದ ಒಳಗೆ ಹೋಗುವಾಗ 4 ಅಡಿ ಎತ್ತರದ ಪಂಚಲೋಹದ 2 ದೀಪಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಿಯರು, ಪ್ರವೇಶ ದ್ವಾರದ ಒಳ ಮೇಲ್ಮೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಉಡುಪಿ ಕಡೆಗೋಲು ಕೃಷ್ಣ, ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸರು ಗಣಪತಿಯಿಂದ ಮಹಾಭಾರತ ರಚಿಸುತ್ತಿರುವುದು, ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ವಾಲ್ಮೀಕಿಯಿಂದ ರಾಮಾಯಣ ರಚನೆಗಳ ಸುಂದರ ಕೆತ್ತನೆ, ದೇವಾಲಯದ ಮುಂಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಹವಾನಿಯಂತ್ರಿತ ಸಭಾಗೃಹದ ಮೇಲ್ಮೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಶ್ರೀಕೃಷ್ಣಾವತಾರದ ಶ್ರೀಕೃಷ್ಣ ಲೀಲೆ, ಗೋವರ್ಧನ ಗಿರಿಧಾರಿ ಇತ್ಯಾದಿ ವಿವಿಧ ರೂಪಗಳ ಮರದ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು, ಮಧ್ಯಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಅರ್ಜುನನಿಗೆ ವಿಶ್ವರೂಪ ದರ್ಶನದ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು, ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಗೋಡೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ 4 ಅಡಿ ಎತ್ತರ 3 ಅಡಿ ಅಗಲದ ರಜತ ಪ್ರಭಾವಳಿಯಿಂದ ಅಲಂಕೃತ ಸ್ವರ್ಣಲೇಪದ ದಶಾವತಾರ ಮೂರ್ತಿಗಳು, ತೇಗದ ಮರ ಹಾಗೂ ಕಂದುಕಲ್ಲಿನಿಂದ ರಚಿತ ಅಲಂಕಾರಿಕ ತೀರ್ಥಮಂಟಪ, ತೀರ್ಥಬಾವಿ, ತುಳಸಿ ಬೃಂದಾವನ ಇತ್ಯಾದಿಗಳನ್ನು ಒಳಗೊಂಡಿದೆ.
Today, we present to you the 12th episode of Sambhashana. Our guest for today is Shri Raghunandan Jagdish. He will be interviewed by our very own youth winger, Krishna Bhatt. Krishna Bhatt is a proud Gokulite since his childhood. He has just finished his MBA and relocated to London, where he says he's on the hunt for good idli and pickles. Before this, he was the HR director for an NGO in Pune. He worked at several HR projects for Kantar and also spent time at Volkswagen. He has spent countless hours in the old Gokul building and at Ashraya, and is excited for everyone in Mumbai who will be able to experience the new Gokul and the new generation of leaders who will take BSKBA to greater heights. I'll hand it over to Krishna for the rest of it.
Thank you so much for that, Guru Prasad. It really is an honor to be able to just come in here and speak. And more importantly, it's a great honor to be able to speak to our next guest. A quick introduction to our next guest. Raghunandan Jagdish is the MD and CEO of Nandan GSC Private Limited. There's going to be a video that's playing. It's a fantastic company, and you'll see contributions from Nandan GSC, not just in your everyday life while heading, say, for example, to the airport or maybe at Imagica, but also in the new Gokul building. And again, more to talk about that at some point. But before I move on, it's just Raghunandan has been a family friend and someone I've known for a very, very, very large portion of my life, and someone I've always turned to for advice. In fact, not just when I was a small child, but also just yesterday when I'm just picking up the phone and talking to Raghunandan, it feels very much like there's no distance between us and time has not passed. It's very much just, you know, the Raghunandan used to live beside me, whose house I used to go to, eat nice food, laugh about things, and then run back home. So I'm going to let Raghunandan talk more about what he's been doing and the amazing things that Nandan GSC has managed to achieve in such a short span of time. And hand over the mic.
Great. So I think just summarizing, we are in the business of lifting systems, lifting, handling, and moving. So these are used in aviation, defense, material handling. So I think that's a little bit about Nandan. We are based in Navi Mumbai and we deliver all over India. I am very much a second generation entrepreneur. So my father is the original, the guy who created the foundation. He had a startup way back in 1991 when the word startup itself was not coined. So he was an accidental entrepreneur in a way there. Then, I've been going to the factory right since I used to be in shorts and going to school. And that's when I loved mechanical engineering and taken it from there. So I think as a background, that's a little bit about it. We do a lot of lifting systems used across multiple factories, locations, factories. All in all, we try to make mankind a better place, the earth a better place to live in by making mankind safer and more productive in whatever is being done. So I think in effect, that's about Nandan.
Fantastic. Now, before we get into there's so many questions. I have been given a list as a questionnaire. I know there's so much that you have to tell us, but let's start, somewhere near the beginning. Where did this begin? And more importantly, what brought you in? What influenced you, say, for example, to study engineering, to do your master's, to join Nandan GSC later on? And also, what is your association with Gokula and how, I think we also met at Gokula multiple times, and it's just one of those, what's the story there, right?
So, this, like I said, Nandan as an idea was formed in 1991. And dad used to be working in a company for about 18 years, shut down due to a labor dispute where he was working as a works manager. And instead of going to work back for somebody else, he decided to do something on his own in a small 100 square foot place with about 6 people. And that's where it began from. And I think, when you're kids, you're influenced a lot by what your parents do. So looking at the factory, looking at machines kind of was very exciting for me. And being able to go there, and I kind of decided, okay, I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. So studied at Somaya, did my BE, then went over to the US, did a master's in mechanical engineering at Texas A&M. And at that point of time, 9/11 just happened. I intended to work in the US maybe for 2 or 3 years and then come back. But due to 9/11 and industry there in the US being in a bad shape, in 2003 I decided to come back. So it's been 18 years since I'm back from that part of my life, and joined with dad, and of course took it to the next level. So as of now, in the 18 years, we have 3 factories, 200 people, more than 10,000 odd equipment we've delivered all over the country, and the list is growing. So that's, I think, where we are.
I enjoy reading about Nandan GSC, especially because it's such an interesting company in the ways it touches people's lives. And I remember, I think at some point going with that to the factory, though the part I remember the most is the 2 dogs that were outside and I got to play with them.
Yep.
To be on though, back on subject, Sambhashana is at its heart a conversation with the youth wingers.
Right.
And do you have any advice for all the other youth wingers who, like me and you, are being told by their parents that yes, engineering is the way and engineering is what you should do? What got you on that track, and would you recommend it today for the youth?
So I think principally it's about I feel at an early part of your life you should try to do the search for what do you really love doing, and continue doing that in full swing. Because it's very easy, like some people go to IIT because IIT seems to be the thing, then they go to IIM because IIM seems to be the thing, and then they become authors and write books. So technically, what I wouldn't want to name who they are, but technically that's what happens. Of course, every part of the journey is a learning, and I'm sure that every phase you pick up something and go. But the faster you catch up with what you love, so there's only 2 ways to do this. One is you do what you love, or you love what you do. So there's no third way to this whole thing out. Otherwise, there'll be stress in your life. you won't enjoy doing what you're doing, and take it forward. So if there's any one little advice to the youth, what your parents tell you is important, but always govern the verdict of your heart. And when you say verdict, it always means you need to do the search, get a lot of answers, and then come to a conclusion and then stand by it. Because end of the day, you don't want to 20 years later tell that, oh, I was forced to do this by my parents, and blame them for it. Because ultimately it's you who will decide what your life course takes up to.
Exactly. I also remember, I think thinking about my own childhood and how my father really wanted me to continue with his business. But at the time, I never really thought of it as a business, right? Because my dad's a CA and it doesn't really add up. It sounds like a job. And it was hard for me to take that decision. So one of the questions is, what did you think of your father's business when you were young? And how was that transition from sort of being a young student in Texas to coming back and saying, no, I'm going to work with dad? And at some point of time, now you're the CEO and MD of the company. So again, what's that transition from being an employee for your dad and now running the business?
So I feel, contrary, I have a little different opinion from the startup culture that's going on today. I always feel it's great that you feel at the age of 19, 20, 16, you have a great idea and you'll get paid and you become a billionaire like a Mark Zuckerberg. It's great to be influenced by that. But what you're not looking at it, there are millions of other people who have got into it and failed. And then handling failure at that young age is very difficult. So what I feel is everybody has to go through a phase where you learn, and you learn by doing. Because what you learn in college is a lot of it is theory. You would not really, want to, you might not apply most of those things except what's there on your resume to begin with. But if you really want to take it up, if you have a family business that you go back, I believe now family businesses are coming back into fashion. A lot of people want to join back family businesses after working globally and stuff. It's always a great idea, but that's something I have not done. My only boss has always been my father, so I've not really worked outside. But the good part there again is that if you get a chance to work out for a year or two, you get a good glimpse of what's happening out before you come in, and then take it forward. And again, not everybody has the advantage or the good fortune of having a family business to back upon. At that point of time, you can always look at getting experience, because it doesn't matter what your first salary or your second salary is. It matters about what you pick up from those jobs. So as long as you have constant learning and you have enthusiasm in what you're doing, people will teach you. If in the initial part of your career you don't have enthusiasm, nobody will ever teach you anything, because you'll have to just look and learn, and you might actually look up the wrong things. So working in a multinational or a big government organization, as your first job may not be the best way that people would want to look at it, because there you're looking at wrong examples of what you could do in optimizing your life. So it's a good idea for you to work somewhere, even if required for free, intern for a year, if so, and if you can afford it. With that kind of an experience, go on to the next phase of your life. I still cherish an offer letter I had in 2001 from Larsen and Toubro. I never joined them, of course, but today Larsen and Toubro is my client and I deliver things to them. But I do have an offer letter, and maybe one of the only things that it did there while going, and that was, I think, pretty much the only time I made a resume. I made a resume, went for JDs, went for group discussions, went for interviews and everything. Everything happened. I got an offer letter, but they gave me a caveat saying I need to pass in the medical. And my chashma number was -10. So in the medical, they kind of, failed me. And that actually spurred me on to get LASIK done. So my number went to 0 after that when I got the LASIK done. And I did get the job offer, but I never took it. I went to the US instead. So I think every event that happens in your life happens for a reason. It's always nice in hindsight to think, oh, that is what happened. But at the time when it happens, you need to take a decision and then make it right. Because that's exactly what Ratan Tata also says. There are no good right decisions and wrong decisions. You need to make a decision and make it go right as best as you can. So similarly, like that, it's your choice. Make a decision, go ahead, and then work upon it to make it as best as you can.
Always a fountain of just wonderful advice. Again, quick extra bits. I'm going to continue to introduce Raghunandan in different ways throughout this video, but many of you will not know that Raghunandan has an alter ego called Raghudan. And Raghudan shares just amazing, bountiful advice. From the most recent bit of advice, I think the start of the video I watched said, entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey. And I know, again, it's a really good time to be an entrepreneur. There is a lot more funding available. There's a lot more visibility. And the technology, the back end, the suppliers, people are more ready and open for startups than they were in the past. But it still is, I think, in many ways, a lonely journey. So do you have any advice for the entrepreneurs of today, the people who are, studying and thinking, hey, maybe I could do something? How do you get the courage to start off on this lonely journey? And why is it such a lonely journey?
So, good question. So, the point is that when you are working in some kind of a company or you're working as a professional, you do have peers, you have a boss, you have subordinates, maybe when at a latter part, you have customers, you have stuff. But the main important part is you have peers who turn out to be good friends later on. But when you turn out to be an entrepreneur, you don't have peers. You only have customers, you have vendors, you have employees, you have people who are maybe, your stakeholders in different ways, but there are no friends. And that's when the journey gets a little lonely. And maybe one of the great ways of doing this is to get into a coaching engagement with some kind of a coach, because a coach is different from a trainer. A trainer teaches you what to do. A coach helps you think, brainstorm along with you and get going. So one of the good ways of looking at it is, for people to have a mentor, to get into kind of coaching with somebody, to go to somebody who's been there, done that, and then talk to them, because that is one of the best ways you can get advice, because a professional might not necessarily give you the best advice, but somebody who's a mentor, somebody who's a coach will generally guide you towards the right, advice. So that's a good point to take forward. So,
Exactly. And I think I really like this point because it's also segues very neatly into how we've met and how I've met so many wonderful people at BSKB. You were in the youth wing, I've been in the youth wing. And, when I was a young child, I very much thought BSKB was like the puja and pickle club. But one of the huge advantages that it's brought to me as an adult is it's just brought me in contact with so many people who are like me, who come from similar backgrounds and are so eager and ready to help, right? So again, for the young people listening, for anyone who's starting off in this journey, and honestly, entrepreneurship can be at any age. Maybe you want to retire and start your own business. Make sure you are part of a community, something like the BSKB, and make sure you can reach out to all those people around you and tell them, you're on this journey and learn from them. And on that note, Raghunandan, what was your experience in the youth wing? What was your experience been in sort of, again, meeting these amazing people who have today helped recreate Gokul entirely?
Correct. So I think BSKB, as a pretty old organization, has always reinvented itself and, pitched to take it to the next level. And YouthWing was very important part of all this happening. I'm not very fluent in Kannada. That is one of the major things, but I speak Tulu. But being in the, I remember as a child going down to Gokul, thinking about it, national, holidays, go on the flag hoisting days, look at the functions. So community is basically a set of people who have some kind of a common background. So if you look at colleges, they have a chess club, they have a reading club, they have different kinds of things. So that's one kind of interest, which is a hobby that's tying you together. In the BSKB or a community of such things, all of our parents came from that kind of a background. We do have relatives based in the South Canara part of Karnataka, and we speak similar culture. I mean, there's similar culture. We look to emulate from each other, saying, what's happening. So it's definitely a lot more than pickles and, puja club. But that said, I think the younger voices which are being heard by the committee members, getting them involved into mainstream, because I think the secretary today, Anand Poti, was very much part of the youth wing initially, and then he's gone on to be the committee member and be the honorary secretary and take it forward. So in that count, at some point of time or the other, there is going to be a greater cause than just fun and work. These are just two parts. So today kids think work-life balance is a very important jargon, but it always used to be an important part of culture all the time. People used to socialize going in. That was always part of the play, quote unquote, that you do. Pubbing only came up much later, but that's not the only way to let your hair down. There are other methods to put it up. So I think leadership is formed in There is a lot of camaraderie that builds up. There is a lot of networking that you're taught to, get into zones. Because now in Mumbai, we are all migrants. We come from Karnataka, so we feel connected here. But if a similar kind of thing you go and do that in the UK or the US, people will laugh at you. Because when you go down to the UK and US, it's not really a BSKB or a Karnataka association anymore. It becomes a little bigger, like an India association. Maybe tomorrow we go down to the Mars, we go down to Mars or some other planet. BSKB has no relevance there. Then it will be people of the earth coming together. So I think a congregation of like-minded people to the closest roots that you can get down to is where it's important for people to just bond in together.
It's just, I think I'm just thinking now about all the people who I know who are part of the India Club here in the UK, right? And it's very much like you'll meet these people and you all share a mutual love for, say, samosas. You share a mutual love for just roti sabzi. But when I want like good idlis, it's a bit of a hunt, which is why it's now part of my bio. It's like, guys, someone tell me where I can find a grinder. But one of the interesting also pieces of being part of community is also giving back to the community. And again, the association is extremely grateful for the contributions that you have made, including, I believe, the stack parking system in the new building was entirely done by Nandan JSC.
Correct.
So first of all, thank you. Second of all, could you tell us a little bit about it, how that came to being, how that sort of alliance formed, and what made you do it, and how did you think about, for example, pricing and contribution and the amount of time it would take?
So I think parking is a very important part of any building that you build in an urban kind of context, especially in a place like Sion, which is very, very cramped, and you have a very small perimeter of your own boundaries. Yeah. So at that point of time, while discussing, we brainstormed and said we're going to go 2 levels down. So there are 2 basements. When we built that, we also gave the ideas of doing a triple park, which is a different kind of stack parking, a double park. Then we came up with the idea saying that, the space is so small. So if you're going to get, and then you need a lift to take it up and down. When you take it down, it's so tight that you can't really turn your car around. So we made something called a turntable that you get your car on it, press a button, it just rotates. So then you can put your car in. And while doing all this, we realized that there was 2 floors up and 2 floors down. That is the total parking requirement as per norms.
Yeah.
So we came up also with an idea called a platform parking system, which is one of the first times that we are doing it out here, and which actually was able to eliminate 1 floor of parking on the 2nd floor. So by doing that, you were able to save up a lot of FSI. Ultimately, yes, it's my own association. So we were able to sit up and think, and this is not a commercial venture for us to get it done. For us, we said that we're taking on the maintenance and everything on ourselves. So the stuff is already executed. It's already put up. It's pretty much state of the art. I think very soon when the building opens up, you will be able to put up the parking on your own. 65 cars can be parked there in the basements.
And this is a reminder that at the old Gokul, you could park like 5 cars outside and that was it.
Correct.
Right? And now we have a building with parking space for 65 cars. That's amazing.
Correct.
And have you been to the new building recently? Because I was there, I think 2 weeks ago. And honestly, I mean, it's still under construction. There's some finishing work to do, but you just walk into this grand entrance and you can see the temple. It's almost ready, and these wooden carvings. I don't think the video at the start did it justice, but what are your thoughts on the new Gokul building?
I think it's come across fantastically. Dr. Suresh Rao's vision, as well as the entire committee's push of getting this together. In these difficult times, also try to, garner the money in, get the construction going. I mean, I was part of the construction team, so I do know how difficult it was to even get labor in and make them stay, get permissions, make sure that Corona doesn't impact and stuff like that. But exactly. I think the vision is justified as a modern building with a lot of traditional outlook in terms of wherever you can put a little carving, it has been put up. The wooden carvings are fantastic and beautiful. The stone carvings are itself there. I don't think in Mumbai we have any kind of a temple with this kind of wooden carvings. We do have Swaminarayan and stuff where you have sandstone and stone, but wooden is not that prominent nowadays. But I think it is going to be, and again, Krishna is a very popular god. He will draw a lot of people to come. Yeah, well, you don't embodify all those virtues of Krishna that people
What are
worship.
you saying,
Few of
Raghu?
them,
I'm a
yes.
very, I'm a
Yeah.
good person, I think.
Few
I just
of
don't
those
have 16 lakh
virtues.
lives yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Yeah. So that's why I said those some of those soft virtues. Yes, I'm sure you're an expert at them, but there are a lot of people who are Krishna believers. So I think it's going to draw a lot of people to come back in, not just from the community, but even from outside. So it will be a monumental place by itself. It's already called Gokul Marg, so it's a landmark by itself. But I think once
Exactly.
the building is done, it will be appreciated by a lot more people.
And
So
it's not
and
just
along
a
with that,
landmark.
we have state of the art firefighting system, sound, AV, HVAC, the car parking. Those are all the modern amenities which are among the best of what's available today.
Exactly.
Not just on statutory compliance for namesake, you just do it. It's not that, but it's been done very, very well. So I think a place where the community can get together, it's something to look forward to.
And it's not just a place or a landmark. It's very much our place. It's very much our landmark.
Right.
I remember more than 10 years ago, Dr. Rao was going house to house talking about his vision. And it's just really magical to see it, just
Correct.
actually see it come to life.
Correct.
On that note, though, when you talk about sort of vision and when you talk about, a 10-year plan coming to life, I remember having a conversation with you recently about, what advice should we give youngsters? Like, how do you tell people who are just at the start of this journey,
So
to establish a vision? What does the word vision mean?
right. So I think that's again a very, very important aspect. Something surprisingly that we never taught in school. We are taught a lot of crap classes in school which we are forced to attend, and a lot of history we learn. But history can only take you forward if you understand the lessons and take it there. It's not about what date, what happened that is really relevant, but what is the relevance of an event like that. So I mean, one of my gurus, says the purpose of life is to find a purpose and to live a life that's worthy of that purpose. It's a tongue twister, but if you listen to it carefully, what basically it means is that the purpose that you live your life for is what really drives you. That is the reason why somebody at the age of 40 is already on the verge of retirement and he's already lost his energy, whereas a Narendra Modi at the age of 70 is still full of energy and he can work for 14 hours at least on camera, whatever it seems like, and take it forward. So that's when you have a purpose in life, it will spur you on for other things. So it's like that one thing where it's like that snooker ball, where if you hit the right ball, it can go and do magic. So getting a purpose in your life is equivalent to that. So if one of the ways to do this is to do a lot of self-thinking, a lot of learning, unlearning, and relearning, because life is going to be a journey where you're going to keep on learning for the rest of your life till you die. So you either die when you stop learning, or you learn when you stop learning, you die. Either which ways, it's true there. But it's not about the physical life that you keep on breathing, but it's about what you contribute back into this place. Because otherwise, you could live a whole life, and within 2 years, people would even forget that you ever lived. But that's not really what humanity is meant for. Humanity is meant to leave a mark behind in terms of memories, in terms of impact that we've done, in terms of giving back that you've done. So, right from an early age, if people start, uh, I went to a Catholic school, so we had a class there called moral science. Because the Christians used to go to catechism class, and we used to go to this thing called moral science. It used to be a lot of fun, and we used to be having a lot of jokes and everything. But if you look back today, if those lessons are properly taught, those are actually the lessons that will take us forward. Because from the purpose is like the direction, that the thing that you put up on the Google Maps, that this is where I want to go. So that's your basic thing. In between that, you have your goals, which could be shorter term, let's say 3 years or 5 years. You say, I want to complete my education. I want to go down to this level. So that's the pit stop that you're looking at, and you put up saying, okay, I will take it in that direction. Along the way, you need to start planning for the year, you need to start planning for the month, and you take little steps, and these are all your milestone markers. At any point of time, you can always take another route. You can always go around, you can get lost, always. Like, even if you are the best of the maps, even with Google today, you can get lost for miles. But as long as your destination and your purpose is clear, it'll find a way to kind of circle around and, get it back. You might get there late, but you will definitely get there. But if you don't have a circle, if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a goal, you will spend your life living and not wondering what you wanted to do. And at one point of time, like, a Pink Floyd song, Time, it just says, the time is gone, the song is over, thought I had something more to say. That's exactly what will happen when you're lying on your deathbed, whatever that age is, whether you're 40, whether you're 50, whether you're 60 or 100. But if you have not lived a life of purpose, that's exactly the question that will run through your mind, saying, what if I could have lived a life that is more actualized? I could have lived a life that is more maximized.
And again, the purpose of this is not to scare the listeners. The idea is inspiration, right? Which is, again, if you do find your purpose and if you do have a plan, then at some point of time things will be all right. And I think a previous speaker in the same Sambhashana series had mentioned, if you have a 3-year plan and it takes 5 years to do it, that happens. That's all right, but it's about having a clear plan, having a clear vision, and being motivated to get there. On that same note, Raghunandan, have you experienced one of those moments, where things did not go according to plan, where, you encountered a point where your life goals had to be sort of, flipped around, but to achieve that same overarching purpose? And how would you advise people who've never seen failure really? Because we've all lived quite, I think, privileged lives. Our parents have worked so hard to get us still here. But at some point of time, they're going to hit the real world the same as you did and face some challenges. Any guidance?
Correct. So I think, life is the best teacher that you can ever get. And it again depends upon what interpretation you do of the learnings. I remember I was in my 8th standard, since this is Diwali time, still so vivid in my mind. I went to my dad and said, I need to go buy crackers. This was exactly at the time when he started his own business, struggled. There was no money, tough times. He was, I don't know if even he knew what was stress, but stress was what was definitely going through him and stuff. So he made a statement to me saying, okay, at that time we didn't even have a car. So he said, okay, go to my pant. There's some money kept, take it out and just leave something so that I can get to office tomorrow in the rickshaw. So I went to his, pants, and I saw 20 rupees there. So I said, okay, at that time, maybe in 10 bucks, you could have gone to office in a rickshaw. In 10 bucks, should I go and buy crackers or no? I kept it back. Until this day, I have not burst a second cracker yet, because I now see the value of what that money meant. So even today, it's not about whether you can afford something or not. I always have a rationale, which is need versus want, right? I wouldn't think twice about spending on something that I would want or something I would need, but as long as it's justified to me. But if you tell me that there's a 20,000 rupees bag which is by Gucci, buy it for me, I would never ever do that, because I don't see value in it. So value system that we set up is very, very important. And that's again something that only you can gauge. Because for somebody, the Gucci bag might have value. He or she might think, emphasis on the she, might think that the Gucci bag in my hand has a lot of tremendous value, and that is the reason why I need to pay. As long as that is justified in their minds and their brains, it's okay. But you cannot force down value systems down somebody's throat. There's the reason why you still have Lamborghinis being sold, and at the same time you still have fuel efficient Marutis being sold around, which they're trying to make it as cheap as possible.
Yeah, people's needs are definitely different.
Yeah.
And in one of those, the sort of tools that help you achieve those needs, what gets you forward, what gets you going, how do you feel, your education, fulfilling the Indian family dream of going to foreign to study and the exposure it gets you? How did it help you? And also, how will it help young people today? In a very global world, do you really think, when you can study the Power MBA online, why do you need to go all the way to another country to study an MBA, right? So what is the value and how does that value help you?
Right. So, education is something that our parents give us. As Indians, we are very, very fortunate because they always pay for your education. Most of them, at least. The most, I would say 95% of them, parents would sell properties, would sell whatever they need so that their children could get the best education they have. I think in the world, we are one of those fortunate cultures who have this imbibed in them, and hats off to our parents for that. They've never, even if they don't take you on a Euro Disney tour when you're kids, but they did send you to the better than the best school that they could afford at that point of time, which is what I always tell also my workers, saying it's okay if you don't, enjoy your lives as much, but try to give a good education to your children, because that is what will change them from one point to another. So education in the previous context meant going to school, meant getting a education somewhere else and stuff. Today everything is available online.
Getting a stamp at some point is what education was all about, right? Oh, you've 10th pass, 12th pass and graduate stamp, but the whole game has changed now.
It's technically not, because along with school there are relationships that you build, there is social interaction that you do. So today when kids goes to school online, it's a little sad that they're losing out a lot on those interaction levels that we used to have as kids. Playing, I mean, play is a very, very big teacher. Today play is out of question. So from that angle, maybe having a physical education does help, at least on the basic level. But after that, an MBA, whether it's a post-graduation, whether it's whatnot, I would say at least up to a graduate degree, which is, let's say, a BCom, BA, maybe a BBA for whatever. Up to then, going to a college physically is a great idea. Beyond that, it's up to you. You can work and do that together. That's really speaking not going. So the difference between an MBA that you would go to a Mumbai college and maybe Yale, the difference is really the attachment of that certificate onto your career. That the job that you would get after a Yale would take you 10 notches above maybe a Junjunwala college. The stuff that they teach might have been the same. Number two, the kind of network that you make when you are going to the college is different. So when I went to Texas A&M and the different kind of people that are there, I believe there is one guy from my batch who's also president of a country now. So maybe that kind of a global, outlook would be very difficult when you're looking at it from maybe a distance learning or whatnot perspective. But yes, but that is not the reason. Like in Three Idiots, Ranchod Chanchad says, to go to school, you don't need admission. All you need is a uniform. That is absolutely right. So if you find reasons for not doing things, you can find 100 reasons. If you want to do something, one reason is good enough, and you will find that reason and get going on it.
Exactly. Find the thing that motivates you. And again, to the people watching, if that reason is just mommy, daddy said so, then maybe, sort of work on that. Think about it a little more. And it's not just education. It's not just, where you go to school. It is very much the people you meet and how you leverage these networks, these communities to be learning just all the time, to be learning throughout your lives. And just, I don't know, what have you learned most recently? Just share a small tidbit on, what small life lesson has impacted your life.
I think Corona is a big learner that happened in the last 1 year. Before Corona, we kind of were wondering, that we were making plans for 2025. We do a planning retreat and stuff. And a lot of, I always document. Again, one more advice, if somebody wants to write it down, never keep your goals here. Always keep your goals written down and in a book or in a spreadsheet, in a document, wherever, but please put it down. That is a very, very important point where we miss it out. We dream, we think, but we never write them down. And at some point of time or the other, they get missed out. So for me, the moment Corona happened, I was able to get all these books out and, glance through them, look at this, accumulate all of them and make a plan 2020, because that was what was required. At a time when people said, let's be safe, let's look at cutting people, let's look at firing people, let's cut salaries. That's what the talk was happening with my entrepreneur friends, where they were saying that let's look at seeing how we can cut down overheads, etc. I took a very bold step saying, no, I think this is a time when we should hire more people. We added about 25% more manpower during the Corona period. We said that, okay, I think the factories might be closed for some time because of government norms. Let's demolish our whole factory and rebuild it from scratch. So the video that you saw right in the beginning, we launched that. We started demolishing it on Dasara last year in October.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And in February, we inaugurated the new one. So in 5 months, we came up like a phoenix and it got done. We had, at the time when people were saying that there is no work, we reinvented ourselves trying to think what can be the things that will be required to be done at this point of time. And I saw it as a great opportunity where the bigger companies have bigger overheads. The smaller companies have lesser resources. So I'm somewhere in between. So if I'm just able to tide this through, I will be able to grow. And which is actually the case, because in this year, we will actually be 3x of last year.
Wow.
So in spite of whatever we might look at, whatever problems, there will be problems. There will be cash flow issues. There will be people issues. There could be, health issues or whatever there. But if you're scared and if you don't take a shot, you will definitely lose. If you take a shot, there's a good chance of winning. So my advice to people will always be, do not play the game not to lose. Play the game to win, and it's okay if you lose.
Exactly. I mean, the famous line is always,
this is my
hi.
daughter. This is my daughter Kamya.
Hi, Kamya. Nice to meet you.
She's also a big teacher. She's 9 years old and she keeps teaching me a lot. Go.
Oh, the old adage always goes, like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, so she listens to a lot of the motivational speeches that I hear. So in the background, she's becoming a semi-baba already.
Exactly. And she's telling you all the places where you're wrong. And I think the fun thing I used to do with my dad is he'd tell people this is what you should do. And I'm like, but you don't do that. What is this?
Yeah.
Hello. If the roti is burnt, you throw it. You don't be like, no, I will be brave and make a bet. No, what is this? Anyway, applying life lessons to everyday practicing. One of the things I really want to know about is, again, all of these fun stories about how to, do better in life. I really want to also dive into the impact of, your life really. And the small child in me just wants to talk about Imagica, honestly. But I know you also done some really cool projects with the defense space. And also, there's just a lot of cool projects in the airline space where people are every day interacting with some of the work you've done and don't know it. If you could just share a little bit about, these 3 pieces of the work you've done and maybe some more, like inspire people.
So
the amazing things Nandan JSC has done.
So first things is there's a quote of Richard Branson. I think that is what was put up there also. It's a very, very powerful quote that I heard when I think almost about 10 years ago. If somebody offers you an amazing opportunity you know nothing about, first say yes and then find ways to do it. So I met Mr. Manmohan Shetty for a small wheelchair lift. They wanted a wheelchair lift in one of their cinemas. They used to have AdLab cinemas at that time. And when I showed him what all stuff I do for aviation and this and that, he just showed me a little clip on his mobile saying, I'm building a theme park now. So, I didn't know that. And this is a ride I'm going to be getting from Germany. We are almost in the final stages. And do you think you can do it? So I said, yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. And immediately, first steps there, after I got thinking, I said, sir, you know what? I have not done theme park rides before. So let me warn you that first, but I'm an engineering company. I can devise solutions. But the fact that this will be a lot of strenuous effort. So even to make a pitch to you, I will give you a quote. Right. So that is one of the first stupid things that I did. I think as entrepreneurs, we should be very stupid sometimes because you don't know what dart you throw and it actually hits the air. So he looked at me like this and my father was like, are you gone mad? To give a presentation, are you going to charge people? I said, yeah. So I told him, so I'm going to charge you this much to make that initial presentation to see whether I'm capable of doing that or
exactly.
not.
To put the engineering brains behind it, it takes time, it takes effort. Smart people have to get in a room to make even the pitch happen.
Right. So, and there actually, his first reaction was, no, that doesn't sound right. So I was like, oh no, shit, my thing went out. He said, no, I'll give you 90% of that. So I was like, yes, done. Let's shake hands. So I spent 4 nights back to back, worked on different concepts and what could be done. I bought the European standards on amusement parks because standards need to be bought. Yeah. It's almost about 150 pages. I read it front to back, a lot of annotations. On the 5th day, I went to him with a presentation with some animations, with learning what is there, this, that, and I told him, sir, I can do it with that kind of confidence. So I think that's exactly what Branson talks about. Find ways to do it means just don't sleep on it and say that it will get done. You have to really work hard to make it. But that's those opportunities that can get converted into something bigger and change your life direction. So I think that is one of those very few things. When the DRDOs asked me, could I do armoring? Armoring is bulletproofing. So we had not even done a single car of bulletproofing. And the first vehicle that I did of armoring was to carry a nuclear missile place to place. So again, we studied what are the different armoring techniques. I got an American-based consultant to teach us how to do the welding and cutting. We got them certified. We did a beautiful presentation on what the design review should be, and we got the order. So we made 7 trucks in a matter, and we beat Tata Motors there. So Tata Motors there could not technically qualify because they overshot the payload, but we were able to optimize the design and got it, and we got the order in. So there are a lot of stories like this. Is the reason why at Nandan we are always young. I believe age is just a number. My father is 73, and even today, some new problem statement, I'll take it to him. He'll immediately start scribbling and doing some designing or the other, because out here it's always constantly working. So if you're working, if you're busy, if you are interested and passionate about what you're doing, you will always remain young at heart. You'll remain young in health, and you'll remain young in your thoughts.
This is very much what got me excited about engineering way back when, actually being able to design something, make something, build something. And, whenever someone asks, oh God, I have to cram this entire fat textbook the night before the exam, what is this helping me with in life? I can tell that story and be like, yeah, you had to learn the entire European standards in just 4 nights. Where else did the training come from?
Correct. And that again, what happened there was once we made the ride, I got the order to make it. So we made the ride and everything. And when we had to test it, Kamya, who was just standing behind me, was inside a mother's tummy. My wife Sangeeta was pregnant at that time. And one of those visits when we were making there, I had so much confidence in my own product. She and me both sat on it and we were able to go up. And that's, how much trust I have in my own engineering and my team.
Exactly. So when you make something of quality, then there's no fear, right? You've done all the testing. There's at least 4 degrees of failure that you're safe from.
No, at that time there was no restraint, nothing. This was in the initial stages.
Yeah. I mean, just the faith and the confidence. I'm always impressed. But this also lines up to, I think, one of the, again, this closing time. I don't want to keep people for far too long in what should have been an interesting video. But let's talk about, again, family, about virtues, about values. At this point in your life journey, I think at some point you'd mentioned at the age of 52, you're just quitting and running off to do very different things. So, when we talk to everybody else about setting that life's purpose and vision, what is today your life's purpose, your vision? And again, how should we emulate that?
So like for me, the purpose of what I define is about improving mankind by making it safer and improving handling. So whatever little problem areas, if I see a worker working with, a little unsafety within a factory or a non-safety standard in my customer's factory, my purpose would be try to give him a tool that he works in a little safer manner. We work on ergonomics. So all those things go around it. So my purpose is defined to my team, who's then getting aligned with, my goal. Actualization of everything and optimization of everything is my purpose. So I would want to see how can I make this more efficient? How can I make this process more efficient? Today, we are taking 5 days to do it. Can I do it in 3? Can I do it in 4? So is what I would challenge my own team also to do it. And then again, if the team is motivated and challenged, they will enjoy it, else they will be stressed. So when a youngster comes and says, sir, I want work-life balance in my work and this and that, he's not the kind of guy who will work with me, because he will not enjoy working with me, because he will see it as stress. Whereas on the other side, if somebody looks at the larger picture and I tell them, look, there's a guy who was an intern in my office 15 years ago. He joined in as an intern and today he's my operations head. But it's not happened overnight. Whereas there is another guy who's worked with me for 30 years. He's just moved from a worker to a foreman. That's about it. But just because you're there in the company for a long time is not growth, because that is just inflation. You're just going to beat inflation and get done. But if you want exponential growth in your mindset, you will have to learn, you will have to unlearn, and you will have to relearn. That happens in every stage of everybody's life. So the number 52 that you talked about was actually ingrained into me when I was 17 years old. I had already decided that at 52, I want to get into politics to do service to the country. So the speed of wanting to do this faster was just that, saying when I get into politics, money should never be a criteria for me at all. It's just about being there for about 5 years or so, trying to do what I can for the country, and then maybe get on to the next stage. I don't even know what is that. I'm not even seen that far apart. But the direction in which I'm taking is whatever I'm doing is all towards that. So today, if my factory, I've increased it by doubling capacity and looking at more working with, so I would work with my suppliers, trying to make them better. So if my supplier used to take 20 days to make something, I would push him to make it in 18. I would talk to my client and say that, okay, this is what we are doing. We will do systems where I am telling you information that this is where we have. So that transparency that we are building on, the corporate culture that I'm trying to get in, the review systems that I'm getting in is all going in that direction. So for all the youngsters out there, even if you're working in a job, so all these lessons are not just related to you if you're owning a business or you're an entrepreneur or you're the CEO of a company. Can even work on any role that you play. If you own that role, if you own that chair, and if you believe, let me work on competing with the me of yesterday. Can the Raghu of today be better than the Raghu of yesterday? I think that itself is a big pointer to take it forward, and that's when you can work as an intrapreneur within any company that you work. And today, I think companies are more than willing to let you take risks on their cost. So if you fail, you really don't really lose anything, but you are allowed to take up risk. You can make up a business plan, take it up to your management, and I'm sure they'll run through it.
Exactly.
You can make up processes, you can do whatnot. So
the HR manager in me is definitely talking about all, the trends in the business today are very much finding amazing people and then enabling them to do well. So no matter where you are, if you want to do more, if you want to do better, your organization will support you.
correct.
And the journey of entrepreneurship, as we're learning through this conversation, it's a lot less lonely than it used to be. But summarizing and again, bringing us back to where we started, right? How does the BSKBA, how does Gokula factor into these life plans? And how do you intend to engage with the community in the future? Are there any clear plans? Are there any ideas? Am I invited to an event at Gokula sometime next year? I'd like to be there. The food has always been good. So
yeah, I think as a community, the way Gokul is building up and getting the new building launched and events being done there and stuff, I think it's a good trend. The fact that we set up a home for the aged where there are people who are staying in, and this again is not because today a home for aged is not just for destitutes, because there are cases where the children are living in the US and there's nobody here to take care of parents, so there has to be a dignified place for them to live in. So I think considering those areas, Gokul has done a fantastic job, and that's the reason why there is an appeal beyond just the community. There are a lot of people with good names who have also contributed to the Gokul building, and that's not because they belong to the community, but there are a lot of Gujaratis, Hindis who have also contributed. That's principally because they do recognize the good work being done. You can be like an Azim Premji who first earns a lot of money and then gives it back to society, because that's where he's 27. I think the number I just read today morning was 27 crores per day is what he's given back. But to do that, you also need to earn 10 times of that amount. So I think a lot of us are far away from that. But in our own little way, if we live a life where we respectfully work with the people who take care of us, the housekeeping people, the security people, we make a little time to go to an orphanage, to go to a home for the aged, spread some cheer there. I think that I go to one which is in Panvel. It gives a lot of joy to be able to share that with them, at that point of time, for you to sit and listen. Self-help books, I would, if somebody is not got into reading, please read fiction, please read biographies, do not read self-help books, because self-help books are only for helping the author to make more money, right? That's the reason why the name self-help, and Americans have really templatized it to a beautiful level where every Tom, Dick and Harry can go write a book and become a bestseller overnight. If you go on LinkedIn today, you would be like, sometimes I'll be worried seeing that shit. People who are 25 are writing like, best-selling authors and this and that. Then you came to know they've actually sold only 100 books. But yeah, you can buy that out. But read biographies, listen to TED Talks. So if there is, again, something you want to write up, TED Talks are beautiful because they're only 18 minutes long. They're not as garrulous as me, like you said, 1 hour. They try to talk within 18 minutes. And there's a lot of learning that you pick out of it, very esoteric learning. Listen to biographies, listen to people who've been there, done that, listen to them about their stories. There is a library that's called the Human Library, I think now, where you can go and check out a human being and sit across and talk. That is something that's missing out, where you want to meet people and talk. Because today with the chat culture, you're like writing one-line chats, that's kind of wrong. So if you listen, because I always tell my team, God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth. They need to be used in that proportion.
My dad would share the exact same advice with me, I think. But in summary, I'm learning so much actually from today, and I'm excited for the point when Raghunan writes a book. But I think we'll wait a few more years for the biography of Raghunan. I think that's the
biography, I think it's also important to share what you learn. That's why it's on LinkedIn. I have a hashtag which is saying #Raghunan shares. So I openly share whatever I can. So it's a curated thing. So even if you follow that list, it's quite a bit of learning that you would get. And inspiration is just about that, that one little thing on a day when you're totally down and that comes into you that could just spur you up. So it's very important. Motivation is like taking bath every day. You can't do that once a week or you can't do that once a month. Though I believe you do that sometimes, but
it's enough times, that's what matters. It's a cold country. We don't think about that. But I'm distracting from the subject. I think that's a great point. It's a good time to look at, we're on YouTube, I believe. There's a subscribe button somewhere there. The BSKB YouthWing has an Instagram account, and Raghunan is on LinkedIn. Please sign up, make sure to listen.
So the name Raghunan came up because Raghu was a very common name and not available anywhere. But I kind of in college, there was a big fight I picked up with some local goons. I was in the committee where we were organizing the college festival, and these drunk guys wanted to get in. I did not allow them, and I was alone, and there were about 4 of them. And the GS at that point of time came and said, "Arey, tu to Don hai." So that kind of
the legend of Raghunan began right there, and then
the name kind of picked up. Then it became Raghunan, and because when all the original mail IDs were being done, so it's Raghunan at Gmail, Raghunan. So people don't need to really remember my name or mail ID. It's Raghunan at Gmail, Raghunan.com. On LinkedIn, it's Raghunan. On Facebook, it's Raghunan. Twitter is Raghunan. So it's quite easy that way. That ecosystem gets done. And once in a while, yes, I think you become a Don not by your talk, but by your action. And I mean, I've never had to physically fight back to prove that I'm a Don. I think this one is good enough. You're always right when you're on the path of the truth. It should be okay.
Exactly. And the good news is, unlike the more famous Indian Don, you are quite easy to catch and find on all of these lovely accounts. And I would very much recommend to everyone, not just, speak to Raghunan, but as he said, find your communities, find your spaces, whether that's the BSKBA, whether that's people on LinkedIn, whether that's students at the university you intend to study at or the school you came from. Find your communities and find a way to give back, because there really is nothing quite as magical as being able to give back to community.
Correct.
I am done with questions, which is amazing because really there was a very long list in essay. But before we close off, Raghunan, do you have any final advice for everyone really who's interested in this video, and even the people who aren't watching it? Let's put a message out there, because this video will be on YouTube forever. And at some point of time, 10 years down the line, we can both look at it and say, oh, wow, we had such a nice vision. And hopefully, we'll check all the boxes when we get there. Any advice to your future self?
So I think these days there's a topic of life maximization that is close to my heart, where I believe life is not the number of breaths you take or the years you live, but what you put into those years that matters. So if you try to maximize every moment, every working day of your life, everything that you do, at some point of time or the other, you're going to enjoy it. So for doing that, there's a process that you would take, which is very lonely. It has to begin with yourself. So journaling and introspection is very important. Write down a lot of stuff. It'll give you a lot of clarity of mind. Take out some time, do nothing. Take a break. Go stay with yourself. Write down whatever you can. Spend time with friends, because that's when you can spend a little more there. The same high that you would get on what Mr. Shah Rukh Khan's son gets off, you can get the same kind of a high with achievement. So if you go up to a Ratan Tata and asked him that the day he did the deal with Tata, when he bought over Land Rover, I think you got a high better than what any chemical can ever give him. So the sense of achievement that you can get out of your life by maximizing it is great. So every moment of celebration that you could do in that is an awesome time. So do utilize every life, there's a saying, if you live every day of your life as if it's your last, and by the time when it really goes there, you will live it without regrets. So go ahead and
just embrace old man death in a warm hug, I guess, at the end of the line, because you've done everything you wanted to. Again, thank you so much for your time. I'm just very, very proud to have been able to be here, to be able to speak
My
to you,
pleasure.
to learn so much from you. And thank you not just for this conversation, but for all your contributions to my life and to all the members of the BSKB community and for mankind in general, helping make it a better and safer place. That's all from me. And
Thank you.
Guru, you can take it over.
Thanks, Krishna. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful conversation and all the advices. I'm sure the audience had a lot to take from this session. Personally, I learned a lot. Thank you, Krishna, for wonderfully carrying out the conversation. Thank you for your time. As always, the audience is the most important part of any program. We thank you all for being part of this BSKB YouthWing family. We thank the president and the managing committee of the BSKB Association for giving us this opportunity, as well as for their support and encouragement throughout. We'd also like to thank our YouthWing chairman, Haridas Bhatt, Priyanjali Rao, and Janvi Poti for the conversation coordination. Please subscribe to our channel and follow us on Instagram by the name YouthWing BSKBA. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All the best.